Well, here it is. I'm Phil Smith, and in a few days, it's going to be my 30th birthday. And it's just amazing to think of what I've been through in 30 years, what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've had an opportunity to do that some folks don't even get a chance to in their lifetime, the people I've met, just everything. So this is a special vlog all about 30 things that off the top of my head meant so much to me in those 30 years. Now, of course, I'm using the laptop here to refer to a list, and there's going to be some moments where I'm actually going to be holding up the camera and aiming it on a few different things here, but as those of you who read my Facebook page saw, the bulk of what is included in this vlog has all been able to fit on a coffee table here in my apartment. So we're just going to get started right into it here, and you may even see a few little surprises within this vlog after it's been posted to YouTube. Just a few little extra enhancements that I'm sure you'll enjoy. And all of you who are talked about in this video, make sure to watch out for the tags on Facebook, because you will be a part of this, and I'm very happy that you will be. So let's get right down to it here. Random order. We're going to start off here with video arcades. Now, when I was a little kid, my parents used to always go to this mall locally in Wilmington, Delaware called Concord Mall. And one of the big things that I loved about going there was the video arcade. It was actually sort of this space-themed video arcade called Spaceport. And then in later years they called it Time Out Spaceport. And then later I think they changed it to just Time Out. I guess basically they figured that was a way of telling kids, you know, you may be in time out, but you get to have a lot of fun when you're in time out by playing all these video games. That's where I first played one of the first racing games I ever got interested in, called Pole Position. I also remember that was the first time I ever played my personal favorite racing game, Outrun. And pinball was also a big thing when I was a kid, going to the arcade playing pinball. I guess you might say that I've become a bit of a pinball wizard, kind of like Tommy. But yeah, video arcades were a very big part of my childhood in the 30 years that I've been alive. So next thing we're going to move on to, and this is a very, very big thing about my 30 years of life, because even though I'm almost 30, he's still a very big part, and he's just a little car that I like to call Herbie. Herbie the Love Bug, the next greatest big thing about my 30 years of memories here. And I've got a lot of things to show here. Now, I'm a collector of a lot of memorabilia for Herbie the Love Bug, and one of the first big things I remember getting was the videotape. This is the original 1992, I believe. 92 or 1991, I think, maybe. Yeah, 1991 VHS videotape as part of the Walt Disney Studio Film Collection that they released in the early 90s. These were a lot of hard-to-find classic live-action Disney films that for the very first time were available to own at a reasonable rate. Back in the early 80s when VHS tapes first came out, some of these Disney films were actually retailed, if you can believe this, between about $70 and even $90. I remember even reading that when Tron first came on VHS, it was worth about $95. But this, I still have the original VHS tape here for the Love Bug, and you can actually kind of see some faded writing on there. My name was actually written on there for in times where if I was bringing it in, you know, to a friend's house, you know, for like a sleepover, you know, my mom always wanted me to make sure that I had my name on my, you know, stuff that I was bringing over. So that's one of, you know, the big things about me, you know, Herbie the Love Bug. And of course, I remember 1 year later, Disney released its second wave of its studio film collection and brought out the sequel, Herbie Rides Again, on VHS tape as part of their Walt Disney Studio Film Collection. So I still have this one in the original 1992 VHS tape. And of course, you know, like I said, it's also part of a lot of merchandise I have here for Herbie the Love Bug. I also, these are just, you know, part of my collection, of course. I have just about everything imaginable in a great big box in my bathroom closet area, big walk-in closet. So there's just a few things I wanted to kind of show off here. the original Love Bug 1969 paperback novelization, which is pretty cool. And of course, when you talk about video, my love of home video, I've got the original Love Bug Laserdisc, if you can believe that. That's the original 1981 Laserdisc of the Love Bug. And of course, in addition to that, I've also got the original 1981 sequel Laserdisc of Herbie Rides Again. And then of course, when you talk about, video technology of today, the DVD of the Love Bug that came out in spring of 2003. And right now I know a lot of us within the Herbie the Love Bug fan club, which I'm a big part of since about, I'd say, 1997, we're eagerly awaiting the arrival, hopefully, from Walt Disney Home Video of the Love Bug on Blu-ray. So fingers crossed for that. Again, Herbie the Love Bug, big part of my life, and hopefully more big Herbie events to come on the horizon. I'll try my best to be there because I love Herbie the Love Bug, love all the friends and fellow fans that I've made for Herbie all through the years. So Herbie the Love Bug, huge part of my 30 years. Next thing, Walt Disney World. As you may recall, last year I went to Orlando, Florida to go to Disney World for the 15th time. I have been going to Disney World a lot throughout my life. Some of these trips were actually done by way of driving from Wilmington, Delaware with my parents all the way down to Orlando, Florida during my winter vacation from school. We would go down to Walt Disney World for a few days, and then we would drive to my grandmother's house in Hollywood, Florida. But a lot of great memories had there at Disney World. I've seen it evolve through the years. Back the first time I went, when I was 4 years old, in the late fall of 1987, sorry about that, 1987, when I was 4 years old, the very first time I ever went to Disney World, and I remember just being enthralled by it all, meeting the Disney characters, and just seeing how much has been added to it through the years, the addition of MGM Studios, which is now the Disney Hollywood Studios, stuff like the Tower of Terror, additional parts of the theme parks. It's just been a wild ride, and I love it, and I hope many more trips to Disney World are in my future. So that's another one for the memories. Next thing, Peanuts comics and cartoons. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved reading the Sunday funnies in the newspaper, and one of my all-time favorites was the Peanuts gang. Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, Lucy, Schroeder, Peppermint Patty, Marcy, Woodstock. The whole Peanuts gang created by Charles Schulz, and it was such a huge part of the weekends for me, especially on Sundays, reading, the full color comics in the newspaper and reading what adventures Charlie Brown and Snoopy were getting into, and just watching the animated cartoons that they did all throughout, the years. Charlie Brown Christmas, He's Your Dog, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, it's the Easter Beagle, Charlie Brown, the movies, A Boy Named Charlie Brown, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, Snoopy Come Home. It's just an endless list of great classic moments from my childhood, including my very first stage show that I was in when I was in 5th grade, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I played one of 6 Charlie Browns, and I had 2 singing solos. That pretty much was when I got bitten by the acting bug and tried to pursue a career in acting. So I owe a lot to the Peanuts gang in my wanting to kind of, get out there and act and recreate scenes from the classic comic strips. So again, Peanuts comics and cartoons, big part of the memories I have. Next big thing, part of my 30 years of memories, Ernest P. Worrell. Some of you may know that one of my big interests in the world of pop culture nostalgia is the Ernest series of films, played by the late, great Jim Varney. I've got a lot of stuff here regarding Ernest, and he's kind of part of that collection of stuff that, a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't tell too many people you're a fan of this. Kind of like my love of the Police Academy movies, but you know what? It was the 80s, and it was just fun escapism, in terms of comedy, so I love to watch his stuff. I've got a lot of old VHS tapes here. I've got the Earnest Film Festival, which is a collection of about, I think, 101, according to this, 101 commercials that Ernest did throughout the early 80s, along with a couple of outtakes, blooper reel types things. I've also got a 2-pack video set here called the Earnest's Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2. Kind of a different take on the Earnest's Film Festival. A lot of rare commercials and outtakes. Also got this one called, Win $10,000. This is a promotional video where you basically watch it and count all the times you heard, Ernest say the word Vern or the phrase know what I mean. It's just classic stuff like that I really love. I've also got the Essential Ernest DVD collection here. Gotta have Ernest in some way, shape, or form. Got the Hey Vern, It's Ernest complete TV series. And the other great big, wave of Ernest collecting for me came in 2011 when Mill Creek Entertainment put out both Ernest Goes to Camp and Ernest Goes to Jail on Blu-ray. Put it out in high definition, and I love the quality on this presentation. They're really great. And of course, now I'm going to move the camera around a little bit. You're going to like this. Of course, I have the Ernest costume here that I wore for Halloween back in 2011. Got the denim vest and the beige baseball cap that he wore. I didn't win any awards for that, but you know what? It was still a very fun time for me when I appeared as Ernest at the Everything 80s Meetup Group Las Vegas's annual Halloween party. And I still have some of the commercials I created with my best friend out here, Paul Seavey. If you'd like to check those out, click that little link right there, and that'll take you to the page of the Ernest commercials, quote unquote, that I created with Paul Seavey. Thank you again, Paul, for helping me with that. So again, Ernest P. Worrell, big thing in my 30 years of memories. And of course now, as we've gotten to 2013, as I'm entering my 30th year of life, the next big wave of Ernest collecting came in the form of the book Keeper of the Clown, My Life with Ernest by John Cherry, longtime collaborator with Jim Varney with the Ernest character. He was part of the Cardin and Cherry advertising agency that started the whole Ernest craze, really. Put out all the movies, he was the director for a lot of them, and this book was a really good read. I really enjoyed reading stuff about Jim Varney that I had never known before. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's a big Ernest fan. Definitely check out their Facebook page. Just search for Ernest P. Worrell or Hey Vern, It's Ernest, and you'll definitely be able to find the Facebook there along with the details for getting your own copy of the book here. It's available in both paperback and hardback. So check it out if you were a big Ernest fan like me. So once again, Ernest P. Worrell, big part of my 30 years. Next big thing, another big thing from the 80s that was huge for me and still is Ghostbusters. When I was a little kid, I used to go to a preschool with a lot of kids who would always bring in their little Ghostbusters action figures, and I had no idea what it was. I just liked the look of these toy action figures, and then subsequently found out that there was an actual cartoon show called The Real Ghostbusters, based off the movie Ghostbusters from 1984, which of course I'm just an absolutely huge fan of, and got it right here, got the Blu-ray copy of the film here of Ghostbusters. It's again just a huge part of my growing up. Subsequently, I bought a lot of action figure toys for Ghostbusters, including the original Ghostbusters, the Real Ghostbusters cartoon show Firehouse, which my mom still has back east. She's planning on bringing it out here to Las Vegas for me to have. It's a really, memorable set of films, Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, along with the Real Ghostbusters animated series. And, the craze didn't stop there with just the movies and the TV series. They also had the Ghostbusters video game, which came out in the summer of 2009. I believe that was 25 years after Ghostbusters the movie had come out to theaters. So I just absolutely love Ghostbusters. It's a shared interest with me and my buddy Paul. It's just a classic film from the 80s that I love and will continue to love as long as it keeps, having a great following with the fans and rejuvenations in terms of, new fan fiction that's possibly written, and, of course, that rumor that there's going to be a third Ghostbusters film. Whether it happens or not, I'm just glad to be a fan of Ghostbusters overall, and I look forward to seeing it in a few weeks. They're doing a special screening of it. Cinemark Theaters, the movie theater at the Suncoast Hotel and Casino, is doing a special screening of Ghostbusters in a few weeks. Hope to see you all there at that as well. Next thing, another big 80s thing for me, Back to the Future. When I was about 2 years old, in the summer of 1985, two big films were playing out there, and one of them was Back to the Future. The second one I'll discuss a little later, but Back to the Future I found out about when it aired on HBO in 1986 when I was 3 years old, and my mom videotaped it on VHS, and I remember just wearing the video out. I watched it so much. It was just a fun fantasy sci-fi comedy to get into, and as I grew older, I enjoyed seeing the sequels. I enjoyed the animated series. I think the biggest thing was when I got to go on Back to the Future the ride at Universal Studios in Florida, because they actually sat me in the very front driver's seat to the far left, and it was just, my mind was blown. It was just an incredible experience, and of course, you know, just showing off what I have here in terms of my Back to the Future fandom, I've got, of course, the Back to the Future Blu-ray set here, which, you know, is the 25th anniversary edition that came out in 2010. That same year, as part of a Halloween party, I dressed up as Marty McFly, complete with the red life preserver, the Art in Revolution button, and or is it Art and Evolution? Art and Revolution, yeah. Art and Revolution button on there, as well as the shades, aviator style, along with the calculator watch, the Casio calculator watch I managed to find on eBay. And of course, another big prized possession in 2011, when I attended downtown Fremont Street's Las Vegas Car Stars Festival, I actually met Claudia Wells, who played Jennifer Parker in the first Back to the Future, and I had her autograph my Back to the Future Laserdisc. Then right there she says, "To Phil, how about a ride, mister? Love, Claudia Wells, Jennifer." So again, it's just another great series of films that I loved being, you know, a part of, you know, experiencing them as I grew up, and most recently had an opportunity to see it on the big screen. Got a chance to see it play again as part of that Cinemark series of classic films the other day with Paul and my girlfriend Kelly. Again, just an absolutely amazing, wonderful, fun experience. Back to the Future, big part of my 30 years of memories. Next thing we've got, impressions. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I first started to do impressions of different characters and actors in the film and television world. I guess it was just kind of a way of escapism, because it made me laugh, made my parents laugh, made my friends laugh. When I got into high school even, I was doing a lot of impressions of Austin Powers, so much to the point where people who didn't even know my name would just call out to me in the hall, you know, "Hey Austin," and I would turn around saying, "Did you call me, baby? Yeah, did you?" "Yeah, did you, baby? Austin Powers at your service." And then of course I also did Dr. Evil. I didn't spend 6 years at Evil Medical School to be called Mr. Thank you very much. And that would cost you, if you paid to see it live, $1 million. Two of my most prized impressions, you might say, from that era. But yeah, I mean, impressions were a great, you know, outlet for me, for my acting talent, and I love doing them today. You know, I still do the occasional impression if the moment calls for it. I think some of my most popular ones that I do are sometimes the characters from South Park, primarily Mr. Mackey, the guidance counselor, who was best known for saying, you know, "Drugs are bad, it's a bad thing to do drugs, so don't be bad." And I also do a lot of impressions from the characters of the cartoon show Family Guy, most notably Peter Griffin. "Yeah, I said dirty, yeah." And of course, "Stewie Griffin, how I like you. I promise you, when the world is mine, your death shall be quick and painless." And ironically, even when I speak in my normal voice, people think I'm Brian the dog, you know, just kind of standing there, you know. "Oh, I'm not drunk. I just have a speech impediment. A stomach virus. And and her earache. But it's just the way I talk. I've often, when I first started doing those impressions, would look in a mirror and say to myself, you can do all these voices, and you have this as your normal voice. But it's a voice. It's a bass voice, and it's definitely one that worked for me in the world of radio too. So, impressions, big part of the 30 years of memories of me, Phil Smith. Next thing we have in the world of memories, and this tags in as a very good segue for my impressions, Laurel and Hardy. They were actually the first set of impressions that I did growing up. I used to see them on AMC every Saturday from about 12 noon to 1 p.m. They would do an hour-long running of either 3 Laurel and Hardy short subjects or one feature-length Laurel and Hardy movie. And I just loved watching these guys. They made me laugh. They, had great slapstick humor, a really good shtick with the comedy they were doing. And I just absolutely love them. Laurel and Hardy were, again, the very first set of impressions that I ever did. The only problem with that was no one my age really knew who they were. So I was relying on my parents and, relatives and older friends of mine to understand who they were. I remember, some of the first books I ever got was, I had the Laurel and Hardy Encyclopedia, one of my personal favorites that my mom actually got for me when she used to work at a Borders Books and Music back east in Wilmington, Delaware. I also have Laurel and Hardy, The Magic Behind the Movies. And I think this was probably one of the last Laurel and Hardy books that I ever purchased. This is back in the summer of 1999. Laurel and Hardy in Big Quizness. It's kind of a Laurel and Hardy trivia and fact book. And I enjoy it. I've read it a couple times and, tested my own personal knowledge of it. But I'd say out of all the things I'm most proud of is this is a collection from the UK, actually. This is a Laurel and Hardy collection on DVD from the United Kingdom, put out by Universal. I think this came out in, 2004. And this is pretty much an entire collection of not only their silent films and their sound shorts, but a lot of their feature films as well. It is not a complete collection. There's a lot in here that they did not include. Laurel and Hardy in the 1940s did a lot of movies for 20th Century Fox, and those are not included in this. But it is pretty much, the ultimate collection. If you're a Laurel and Hardy fan, and you happen to have a multi-regional DVD player, I definitely check this out, I definitely try and get your hands on it. That's 21 DVDs of an entire collection of Laurel and Hardy films and short subjects. It's absolutely incredible. I'm really happy about this collection. Again, Laurel and Hardy, big part of my growing up, 30 years. Next thing we have, when I was in college, I was a part of the radio station there, 88.7 FM, WSYC Shippensburg. I was known as Mr. Mix, had my own radio show. Originally began as just a fill-in guy back in, I believe it was late spring of 2003, and then by the fall of 2003, and throughout the year 2004, the spring and winter, I had my own radio show Sundays from 5 to 8, and then for the rest of my time in college, I had my own radio show on Friday nights from 8 p.m. to 10. It was a lot of fun, played anything I wanted to, within reason of course. Got a lot of independent musicians recognition, playing them for the very first time on my radio show, at least for Shippensburg's audience. And in that time, not only was I a DJ, but I was also the HR director, and I was the program director, and for that I actually got a plaque here, a very nice plaque to Phil Smith, program director, in recognition of service to WSYC Radio 2005 to 2006. Just a great experience working in the radio at college. I never thought I had, a knack for radio, but I did. And from that, I got 2 internships, one at 93.3 WMMR in Philadelphia in the summer of 2005, and then one out here in Las Vegas at Lotus Broadcasting, which does 97.1 The Point, 94.1 I believe it is the Comp Rock and Roll Radio, And it was a lot of fun. I would love to get back in radio. You know, my first job while I was in Vegas was as a traffic reporter for radio stations. Unfortunately, the company that I work for, Metro Networks, is no more, but I still keep my fingers crossed that one day I may be back on the radio dial. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for Phil Smith, aka Mr. Mix, back on your radio dial soon. So again, another big part of my 30 years, WSYC, 88.7 FM, Shippensburg University. A little shout out I'd like to give, of course, to my good buddy back east, Trevor Stottlemyre, who did the Global Cafe. Also, Rusty Roberts, Large Hearted Rust. Sage Ober, my former co-host on the Mr. Mix and Sage show, and also the man who really made it all kind of possible for me to experience this, Dr. Joseph Burrell from Shippensburg University. He was the advisor for the radio station, and he was also my personal college advisor. Thank you all for making that experience at 88.7 FM WSYC Shippensburg a great, memorable one. Next thing, Wilmington, Delaware. I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, July 20th, 1983, and I spent the bulk of my early life there. I was basically living in Wilmington, Delaware from 1983 to 2004, and that's pretty much the bulk of my first years. You know, I went to preschool at JCC, elementary school at Wilmington Friends School, as well as junior high school there. High school spent at Brandywine High School in Wilmington, Delaware. Go Bulldogs. Class of 2002 graduate of Brandywine High School. Had a lot of great times, especially with the acting. All the friends I met there, Mark Wheeler, Zach Tice, Ben Aaron, Ben Warheit, Josh Seligman, the list goes on. Time spent in the high school chorale, meeting, you know, my friend Sharif Muhammad, Eric Spangler, Eddie McFarland, Rory Donovan, Matt Leitch. You know, we created actually a sort of a doo-wop group called the Alcoves. And we called ourselves the Alcoves because we practice in an alcove area by the choir room. But Wilmington, Delaware just still holds a special place in my heart as being the place where I really grew up. That's, I guess you could say that's where my roots are, Wilmington, Delaware. And I definitely hope sometime in the future to come back. You know, I always throw the invite out to all of you folks watching who are back east. Come on out west to Las Vegas. You know, I really would like to see you again. So don't think I don't want to. I just can't afford it all the time. So one of these days, eventually, hope to get back east to Wilmington, Delaware. Next thing we've got, Rock Band. Now, when the PlayStation 3 first came out, I heard there was this series of interactive games you could play involving music, and it was almost like playing karaoke, but with instruments, playing in time to the game. And that's when I decided, if I get a PlayStation 3, it'll primarily be to play this game, Rock Band. This is, of course, Rock Band 3. I also have different versions of it, Rock Bands 1 and 2, plus the Beatles Rock Band, and Lego Rock Band as well. It's just a really fun interactive game where not only does it feel like you're singing karaoke when you're taking on the vocal portion, but you can also play guitar with it as well. You know, I mean, it's not gonna give you a good tutorial on actually playing a real guitar, but it's fun. You know, you just kind of follow along with these color buttons here in time to what's showing up on the screen. You know, you got your twanging all there, you know, your whammy bar, and it's just a lot of great fun. You know, I remember being especially excited when the third volume came out because they came with a keyboard, which can also be played as a keytar as well. So Rock Band has been a huge part of my 30 years of memories growing up. You know, the technology just keeps getting better, and I loved being able to download a lot of my favorite songs from the Rock Band store. Unfortunately, they no longer put out any new songs, but it's definitely been a fun time playing this game. Always having a couple friends over for sort of a Rock Band party. So again, big thing on my growing up 30 years, Rock Band. Video game technology, once again, just keeps on getting better and more addictive too. Next thing we have, the Everything 80s Meetup. Social life for me in Las Vegas wasn't as easy when I first moved here. I had maybe 3 friends total, primarily because I was one of those people who felt when you make friends, it's usually through your educational environment. And all the friends I made in school were all back east. So how was I going to make friends out here? That's how I found out about something called Meetup. You basically create a profile, enter in all your common interests, and from those interests, the website will come up with different groups based on your interests that you can join. Make a lot of new friends. And for me, one of the big things I was a big fan of was the 80s. So finding this meetup group called the Everything 80s Meetup of Las Vegas, I thought this is perfect. And I joined back in the summer of 2008, and my social life has just exploded. I've met so many people recognize me and know me and love hearing, what I have to talk about. They're often amazed that I know more about the 80s than they do when they were living through it, because, I may have lived through the 80s myself, but I was just a kid. I mean, I was pretty much born in 1983, so my knowledge of the 80s is only about 7 years worth. But really bursting back into the 80s through this meetup group really has been a godsend, I have to say. I love the people that I've met. I love all the events we've been able to attend, and some of which I've actually organized. It's just a group that I hope to, play a more active part in throughout the rest of my life. And again, just keep having fun with it. That's what it's all about. F-U-N. Fun.